The Zorathians were a race of giant, insect-like creatures that had ruled the galaxy for hundreds of years. Their empire was vast, stretching across thousands of star systems, and their power was absolute. They were feared by every species they encountered, not because they were kind or fair, but because they were cruel and merciless. The Zorathians did not believe in peace or cooperation. They believed in domination. Any planet or species that resisted them was destroyed without hesitation. For centuries, no one dared to challenge their authority. On the edge of known space, far from the Zorathian homeworld, a small human warship drifted silently through the darkness. It was called the Eclipse Asterisk, and it was commanded by Captain Rachel Hayes. She was a strong and determined leader, respected by her crew for her quick thinking and bravery. The Eclipse Asterisk wasn't the biggest or most advanced ship in the human fleet, but it carried a crew that was resourceful and willing to do whatever it took to protect their people. The crew of the Eclipse Asterisk was made up of ordinary men and women who had been thrown into extraordinary circumstances. There was Lieutenant Jason Cole, a quiet but brilliant tactician who always seemed to have a plan. Dr. Laura Bennett, the ship's scientist, spent most of her time studying alien technology and finding ways to use it against their enemies. Then there was Sergeant Daniel "Danny" Blake, a tough soldier who led the ship's ground combat team. He was the kind of man who could inspire others just by standing beside them. For months, the Eclipse Asterisk had been patrolling the outer reaches of human territory, watching for signs of trouble. The Zorathians had been growing more aggressive lately, attacking colonies on the fringes of their empire. Everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they turned their attention to Earth. When reports came in that a Zorathian fleet was heading toward one of the outer colonies, Captain Hayes didn't hesitate. She ordered the Eclipse Asterisk to intercept them. The crew felt a mix of fear and determination as they approached the coordinates. They all knew the odds were against them. The Zorathians had superior numbers and technology, but they also knew that running away wasn't an option. If they didn't stop the invaders now, millions of innocent lives would be lost. When the Eclipse Asterisk arrived at the designated location, they found themselves face to face with a massive Zorathian cruiser. The ship was enormous, its sleek black surface glinting in the light of a nearby star. It looked invincible. A message crackled over the comms, demanding that the humans surrender immediately. The voice was cold and emotionless, typical of the Zorathians. They expected the humans to comply without question, just like every other species they had conquered. But Captain Hayes had no intention of giving up. Instead, she came up with a daring plan. She ordered her crew to pretend to retreat, luring the Zorathian cruiser away from its escorts. The enemy ship followed, eager to chase down what they thought was an easy target. As the Eclipse Asterisk sped through space, Lieutenant Cole worked quickly to set up decoy drones and prepare the ship's weapons. When the moment was right, Captain Hayes gave the order to strike. The Eclipse Asterisk unleashed a barrage of missiles, each one hitting its mark with deadly accuracy. The Zorathian cruiser, caught off guard, exploded in a bright flash of light. The rest of the enemy ships scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The humans had already slipped away into the void. For the first time, the Zorathians realized they were dealing with a new kind of enemy. These fragile-looking creatures called humans were not afraid to fight back, and they were willing to risk everything to protect their own. The destruction of the Zorathian cruiser sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the event spread quickly, even reaching the highest levels of the Zorathian command. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's leaders felt a flicker of doubt. How could such a small, primitive ship defeat one of their most advanced cruisers? The humans had no business being so bold or so effective. But Captain Rachel Hayes and her crew didn't have time to celebrate their victory. They knew the Zorathians wouldn't take the loss lightly. If anything, it would only make them angrier. Intelligence reports soon confirmed their fears. A massive Zorathian fleet was mobilizing and heading straight for New Haven, one of humanity's outer colonies. The colony was home to thousands of civilians, farmers, and miners who had no way of defending themselves against an attack of this scale. Captain Hayes called an emergency meeting with her senior officers. The situation was grim. The Eclipse was fast and agile, but it couldn't face an entire fleet on its own. Reinforcements were days away, and by then it would be too late. Lieutenant Jason Cole leaned over the tactical display, his brow furrowed in thought. "We can't win this fight head-on," he said finally, "but maybe we don't have to." His idea was risky, but it just might work. The plan involved splitting the crew into two teams. One team, led by Cole, would stay aboard the Eclipse to harass the Zorathian fleet from above. The other team, led by Sergeant Danny Blake, would deploy to the surface of New Haven to sabotage key enemy positions and disrupt their operations. It was a classic guerrilla strategy: hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before the enemy could react. As the Zorathian fleet approached New Haven, the humans sprang into action. The Eclipse emerged from behind an asteroid belt, firing a volley of missiles before vanishing into the void. The attack was brief but devastating, damaging several enemy ships and scattering their formation. Meanwhile, Sergeant Blake and his team landed on the planet's surface under cover of darkness. Armed with explosives and determination, they began targeting supply depots, communication towers, and landing zones. The Zorathians were caught off guard. They were used to enemies who stood their ground and fought honorably, or at least predictably. But these humans were different. They struck without warning and disappeared before retaliation was possible. Every ambush chipped away at the invaders' confidence, forcing them to divert resources to defend against further attacks. Back aboard the Eclipse, Captain Hayes watched as the battle unfolded. Her hands gripped the edges of her command chair tightly, her knuckles white. She hated sending her people into danger, but she knew there was no other choice. "Keep pushing," she told Cole, who was coordinating the ship's maneuvers. "Make them bleed." On the surface, Sergeant Blake led his team with calm efficiency. Despite the chaos around them, he never lost focus. When a group of Zorathian soldiers cornered them near a fuel depot, Blake ordered his men to set charges and retreat. Moments later, the depot erupted in a fiery explosion, taking dozens of enemy troops with it. The humans cheered, but Blake silenced them with a sharp look. "We're not done yet," he reminded them. "Stay sharp." As the hours turned into days, the Zorathians grew increasingly frustrated. Their once orderly invasion had descended into chaos. Supplies ran low, communication lines were cut, and morale plummeted. For the first time, they began to understand why humans were considered such dangerous opponents. These fragile creatures didn't rely on brute strength or superior numbers. They relied on teamwork, creativity, and sheer stubbornness. By the time reinforcements finally arrived, the tide of the battle had shifted. The Zorathians, battered and demoralized, were forced to withdraw. The colony of New Haven was saved, but at a cost. Several members of the Eclipse's crew had been injured, and some hadn't made it back at all. Still, the humans had proven something important. They could stand up to the galaxy's greatest threat and win. As the survivors regrouped aboard the Eclipse, Captain Hayes addressed her crew. "Today, we showed them what we're made of," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "They thought we were weak. They thought we'd give up. But we didn't. And now they know they should be afraid of us." The victory at New Haven gave the humans a brief moment to catch their breath. But everyone aboard the Eclipse knew it wasn't over. The Zorathians had been humiliated, and humiliation was something they did not tolerate. Captain Rachel Hayes gathered her crew for a debriefing, her expression serious. "They'll be back," she said, "and next time, they won't underestimate us." Dr. Laura Bennett stood in the corner of the room, holding a small device in her hands. She had spent the past few days analyzing fragments of Zorathian technology recovered from the battlefield. Her discovery was groundbreaking and potentially game-changing. "I think I've found a weakness," she announced, her voice steady but excited. "Their armor plating has a flaw. A specific frequency of electromagnetic pulses can disable their shields." The room fell silent as the crew processed her words. If they could exploit this vulnerability, they might stand a chance against the Zorathians' superior firepower. Lieutenant Jason Cole leaned forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We could use EMP devices to take out their ships or even entire squadrons," he suggested. "But we'd need to get close enough to deploy them." Captain Hayes nodded. "Then that's what we'll do," she said firmly. "We hit them where it hurts and make sure they never see us coming." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. The Eclipse would lure the Zorathian flagship into a narrow asteroid field, where its size and mobility would be limited. Meanwhile, Sergeant Danny Blake's team would plant EMP devices at key locations on the surface of New Haven, creating chaos among the enemy forces. It was a two-pronged attack designed to overwhelm and confuse the Zorathians. As the crew prepared for the mission, tensions ran high. Everyone knew the stakes. If they failed, the Zorathians would crush them, and the rest of humanity along with them. But there was no talk of surrender. The humans had faced impossible odds before, and they had prevailed. They would do it again. When the Zorathian fleet arrived, the Eclipse sprang into action. Using its speed and agility, the ship darted through the asteroid field, drawing the enemy flagship deeper into the maze of rocks. The Zorathians, eager to destroy the pesky human vessel, followed without hesitation. Their massive ship struggled to maneuver in the tight space, its weapons firing wildly but missing their mark. On the surface of New Haven, Sergeant Blake and his team moved like shadows. They planted EMP devices near enemy supply lines, communication hubs, and landing zones. Each device was programmed to activate simultaneously, ensuring maximum disruption. As the countdown began, Blake signaled his team to retreat. Moments later, the devices detonated, sending waves of electromagnetic energy rippling through the area. The effect was immediate. Zorathian ships hovering above the planet lost power, their shields flickering and failing. Ground forces scrambled in confusion as their equipment malfunctioned. For the first time, the invaders were truly vulnerable. Above the asteroid field, Captain Hayes saw her opportunity. "Now," she shouted. The Eclipse unleashed a barrage of missiles, targeting the immobilized Zorathian flagship. Explosions lit up the darkness as the human warship struck with deadly precision. The flagship's hull buckled under the assault, its crew desperately trying to regain control. Lieutenant Cole monitored the situation from the tactical station, his eyes glued to the screens. "Their systems are down," he reported. "They're sitting ducks." But the humans weren't done yet. With the flagship crippled, the remaining Zorathian ships began to retreat. Captain Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Let them run," she said. "They'll tell their leaders about us, about what happens when you mess with humanity." As the battle ended, the crew of the Eclipse gathered on the bridge. They were battered and exhausted, but alive. Sergeant Blake joined them, his face streaked with dirt, but his spirit unbroken. "We showed them we're not afraid," he said. "That's something they'll never forget." Captain Hayes looked at her crew, pride swelling in her chest. "Today we proved that fear isn't just something they spread, it's something they feel too. And that makes all the difference." The defeat at New Haven sent shockwaves through the Zorathian Empire. For centuries, they had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip, crushing any resistance without mercy. But now, for the first time, cracks were beginning to show in their seemingly unshakable dominance. The humans had proven themselves to be more than just a minor annoyance. They were a real threat. In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Rachel Hayes and her crew aboard the Eclipse became symbols of hope not just for humanity, but for other oppressed species across the galaxy. News of the Zorathians' humiliation spread quickly, carried by smugglers, traitors, and rebels who dared to defy the Empire's strict control over information. Stories of the human warship's daring tactics and clever strategies inspired countless others to rise up against their oppressors. On distant planets and in hidden outposts, whispers of rebellion grew louder. Species that had once cowered under the Zorathians' shadow began organizing secret meetings and planning acts of defiance. Small-scale attacks on Zorathian supply lines and outposts became more frequent. What started as isolated incidents soon turned into a wave of resistance that stretched across multiple star systems. The Zorathians found themselves stretched thin, struggling to maintain order in territories they had once ruled with ease. Back aboard the Eclipse, Captain Hayes watched these developments with cautious optimism. She knew the fight was far from over. The Zorathians still had vast resources and overwhelming numbers. But she also knew that the tide was turning. They built their empire on fear, she told her crew during one of their brief moments of rest. And now we've shown them that fear can work both ways. Dr. Laura Bennett continued studying the Zorathian technology, determined to find even more weaknesses. Her work had already given humanity a critical advantage, but she believed there was still more to uncover. Lieutenant Jason Cole spent hours refining their battle strategies, preparing for whatever the Zorathians might throw at them next, and Sergeant Danny Blake worked tirelessly to train his team, ensuring they were ready for the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, the Zorathian leadership was in chaos. High-ranking commanders argued over who was to blame for the failures at New Haven. Some called for immediate retaliation, while others urged caution, warning that the humans were unlike any enemy they had faced before. In the end, the decision was made to launch a massive counteroffensive, an all-out assault designed to crush humanity once and for all. But the humans weren't waiting around to be attacked. Captain Hayes had a plan of her own. After consulting with her crew, she decided to take the fight directly to the Zorathians. The Eclipse would lead a daring mission deep into Zorathian-controlled space, targeting key installations and supply depots. By hitting the Empire where it hurt most, they hoped to weaken its ability to wage war. As the Eclipse prepared to leave New Haven, the crew felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were heading into dangerous territory, far from any friendly support, but they also knew they couldn't afford to hesitate. If they wanted to protect their people and give hope to others, they had to keep pushing forward. Before departing, Captain Hayes addressed her crew one last time. "This won't be easy," she said, her voice steady and calm. "But we've faced impossible odds before, and we've come out stronger. Remember why we're doing this, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who's counting on us." The Eclipse slipped into hyperspace, leaving behind the safety of familiar space. Ahead lay unknown dangers and untold challenges, but the humans were ready. They had learned how to adapt, how to fight smarter, and how to stand together no matter what. As the stars streaked past the ship's windows, Captain Hayes allowed herself a small smile. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The Eclipse emerged from hyperspace near the edge of Zorathian-controlled space. The crew was tense but focused. They had entered enemy territory, and every move they made could mean life or death. Captain Rachel Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the tactical display as Lieutenant Jason Cole plotted their course. "Stay sharp," she said quietly. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore." Their first target was a massive supply depot orbiting a barren moon. The depot was heavily guarded, but it was also vital to the Zorathian war effort. Destroying it would cripple their ability to resupply their fleet in this sector of space. Sergeant Danny Blake's team prepared for the mission, loading EMP devices and explosives onto a small shuttle. They would need to get close enough to plant the charges without being detected. As the shuttle detached from the Eclipse asterisk, the warship moved into position to provide cover fire. The Zorathians quickly spotted the intruders, sending out squadrons of fighters to intercept them. Back on the Eclipse asterisk, Lieutenant Cole coordinated evasive maneuvers, keeping the enemy ships at bay while the shuttle approached its target. "Keep him busy." Blake's voice crackled over the comms as his team disembarked. On the surface of the depot, Blake and his soldiers moved like ghosts. They avoided patrols and disabled security systems with practiced efficiency. When they reached the main power core, Blake set the charges himself, making sure the explosion would be big enough to take out the entire facility. "Let's go," he whispered urgently, signaling his team to retreat. Moments later, the depot erupted in a fiery blast, lighting up the darkness of space. The Zorathian fighters scrambled, unsure where to focus their attention. The Eclipse asterisk took advantage of the confusion, slipping away before reinforcements could arrive. The humans had struck another blow, and the message was clear: no target was safe. Word of the attack spread quickly through the Zorathian ranks. Their leaders were furious, demanding answers. How could a single human ship cause so much damage? The Empire's commanders began to realize that the humans weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. And they were winning. Back aboard the Eclipse asterisk, the crew celebrated their success briefly before turning their attention to the next objective. Dr. Laura Bennett had identified a communication relay deep within Zorathian territory. If they could disable it, they would sever the Empire's ability to coordinate its forces in this region. It was a risky mission, but Captain Hayes knew it was worth the risk. As they approached the relay station, the Eclipse asterisk encountered heavy resistance. Zorathian ships swarmed around them, determined to protect their asset. For hours, the humans fought valiantly, using every trick they had learned in previous battles. The Eclipse asterisk's agility allowed it to dodge incoming fire, while its weapons picked off enemy fighters one by one. Finally, the crew managed to disable the relay. The Zorathians' communication network went dark, leaving their forces isolated and confused. Captain Hayes watched the chaos unfold on her monitors, a grim satisfaction settling over her. "That'll slow them down," she muttered under her breath. But the victories came at a cost. The Eclipse asterisk sustained heavy damage during the battle, and several members of the crew were injured. As the ship limped toward a safe zone for repairs, the weight of their mission pressed heavily on everyone. They had proven they could strike fear into the hearts of the Zorathians, but the fight was taking its toll. Despite the challenges, the humans refused to give up. Each victory strengthened their resolve and inspired others to join the fight. Across the galaxy, more and more species rose up against the Zorathian Empire, emboldened by the example set by the crew of the Eclipse asterisk. The tide was turning, and humanity was leading the charge. Captain Hayes gathered her crew for a rare moment of rest. "We've shown them what we're capable of," she said, her voice filled with quiet pride. "But we can't stop now. Not until we've given everyone a chance to live free." Her words echoed in the hearts of her crew, fueling their determination to keep pushing forward, no matter the odds. The ripple effects of humanity's resistance spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Zorathians, once feared and unchallenged rulers, now found themselves facing rebellion on multiple fronts. Species that had lived under their oppression for generations were finally daring to fight back. Small victories by other races added pressure to the already weakened empire, forcing them to divide their forces even further. On board the Eclipse asterisk, Captain Rachel Hayes watched as reports came in from across the galaxy. Rebel factions had destroyed a key Zorathian mining operation in one sector, while another group had sabotaged a weapons factory in another. It was clear the humans' actions had ignited something much bigger than anyone could have predicted. The galaxy was uniting, not under one banner, but through shared defiance against tyranny. But despite these successes, the crew of the Eclipse asterisk knew they couldn't afford to slow down. The Zorethians were still powerful, and their homeworld remained untouched, a fortress at the heart of their empire. If humanity wanted to end this war once and for all, they would need to strike there. The idea was risky, almost suicidal, but it was also necessary. Captain Hayes called her senior officers together to discuss the plan. "We've hit their supply lines, disrupted their communications, and inspired others to rise up," she began, pacing slowly in front of the table. "But if we want to break them completely, we need to go straight to the source, their homeworld." Lieutenant Jason Cole frowned, studying the star charts projected onto the wall. "Their defenses will be insane," he said. "We're talking about hundreds of ships, orbital stations, and ground-based weapons." "I know," Hayes replied, her voice steady but firm. "But think about what it would mean if we succeeded. We'd show the entire galaxy that no one is untouchable, not even the Zorethians." Dr. Laura Bennett spoke up next, her tone cautious but determined. "If we do this, we'll need every advantage we can get. I've been analyzing more of their technology, and I think I can modify our EMP devices to work on a larger scale. If we time it right, we might be able to disable their planetary shields long enough to land a strike team." Sergeant Danny Blake nodded, his jaw tight with resolve. "My team will handle the ground mission. Just get us close enough, and we'll take care of the rest." The plan was set. The Eclipse would leave a small fleet of rebel ships, other species eager to join the fight, to the Zorethian homeworld. Their goal was simple yet audacious: infiltrate the planet's central command center and deliver a crippling blow to the Empire's leadership. Failure wasn't an option. As they prepared for the journey, the mood aboard the Eclipse was somber but resolute. Everyone understood the risks, but they also knew how important this mission was. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for everyone who had suffered under Zorethian rule. When they arrived at the edge of Zorethian space, the sight of the homeworld took their breath away. It was a massive, dark planet surrounded by layers of defensive satellites and warships. The sheer scale of the Empire's stronghold was intimidating, but it only strengthened the humans' determination. "This is it," Hayes said over the comms. "Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember why we're here." The battle began with a coordinated attack on the outer defenses. The rebel fleet engaged the Zorethian ships, drawing their attention away from the Eclipse. Using the chaos as cover, the human warship slipped past the blockade, deploying its modified EMP device just as Dr. Bennett had planned. For a brief moment, the planetary shields flickered and failed, creating a window for the humans to make their move. Blake's team landed on the surface, racing toward the command center. Along the way, they faced fierce resistance, but their training and teamwork kept them moving forward. Meanwhile, the Eclipse fought valiantly above, holding off waves of enemy fighters and giving the ground team the time they needed. Finally, Blake and his soldiers reached the command center. With explosives in place, they signaled the Eclipse before retreating. As the charges detonated, the entire structure collapsed, severing the chain of command across the Empire. The Zorethians, leaderless and overwhelmed, began to fall apart. Back aboard the ship, Captain Hayes allowed herself a rare smile. "It's done," she said softly. "They'll remember this day forever." The destruction of the Zorethian command center marked a turning point in the galaxy's history. Without their leaders to guide them, the Zorethian forces fell into disarray. Ships withdrew from battle zones, abandoning campaigns halfway through. Ground troops surrendered en masse, no longer willing to fight for an empire that had crumbled around them. The humans and their allies watched as the once mighty Zorethian Empire collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. Captain Rachel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her hands resting lightly on the railing as she gazed at the view screen. The image of the Zorethian homeworld loomed large, its dark surface now scared by the chaos below. She felt a mixture of emotions: relief, pride, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. They had won, but the cost had been high. The crew of the Eclipse was battered and weary, carrying scars both visible and invisible. Friends had been lost along the way, and there were moments when victory had seemed impossible. Lieutenant Jason Cole approached her quietly, his face lined with exhaustion, but also quiet triumph. "We did it," he said simply, his voice barely above a whisper. Hayes nodded, her lips curving into a small smile. "Yeah, we did," she replied. "But it wasn't just us. It was everyone who stood up and fought back." Dr. Laura Bennett joined them a moment later, clutching a datapad filled with information recovered from the Zorathian command center. "This could change everything," she said, holding up the device. "Their technology, their strategies, it's all here. If we share this with the other species, we can rebuild stronger than ever." Sergeant Danny Blake entered the bridge shortly after, his uniform torn and dirt-streaked from the ground mission. Despite his appearance, he carried himself with pride. "My team made it out," he reported. "Not without some scrapes, but they're alive." Hayes placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's what matters," she said firmly. "You brought them home." As news of the Zorathians' defeat spread, celebrations erupted across the galaxy. Colonies that had lived in fear for centuries now dared to hope for a better future. Delegations from various species began reaching out to humanity, eager to form alliances and work together to rebuild what had been destroyed. The humans, once seen as insignificant newcomers, were now hailed as heroes. But Captain Hayes knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Peace was fragile, and old wounds ran deep. Many regions of the galaxy were still unstable, and there would undoubtedly be those who sought to exploit the power vacuum left by the Zorathians. Still, she believed in the resilience of those who had fought so hard for freedom. Together, they could create something new, a galaxy united not by fear, but by cooperation. Before leaving Zorathian space, Hayes broadcast a final message to any remaining forces. Her voice was calm but unwavering as she spoke. "You ruled through fear, but fear is no match for hope. Remember this day, for it marks the beginning of a new era. We don't seek revenge or domination. We seek peace. Join us or step aside." With that, the Eclipse turned toward home, its engines humming softly as it carried its crew back to Earth. Along the way, they passed planets and star systems that were slowly coming back to life. Markets reopened, children played in the streets, and families reunited after years of separation. It was proof that even the darkest times could give way to light. Back on Earth, the crew of the Eclipse received a hero's welcome. Their names became legends, their story told and retold in books, songs, and stories. But for Hayes and her crew, the real reward wasn't fame. It was knowing they had made a difference. In the months and years that followed, humanity took its place among the stars as equals, working alongside other species to heal the scars of war. The galaxy was far from perfect, but it was moving in the right direction. And at the heart of it all were the lessons learned during the fight against the Zorathians: courage, unity, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest spark could ignite change. As Captain Hayes looked up at the night sky one evening, she felt a deep sense of peace. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but humanity had proven it could rise to meet them. Whatever came next, they would face it together.